Anne Callum, as a member of the Providence Women's Institute during the First World War, packaged parcels for the boys overseas during World War I and corresponded with many of them while they served overseas, including a letter from Alfred Densham in a German POW camp at the end of 1916. Now it's 25 years later, and Anne Callum, now in her 70s, has been asked to make a presentation to the Women's Institute in 1941. Here's what she wrote more than 75 years ago. I printed the name Corona on this paper, and then I wrote it, and how pretty it looks. And this name was given over 100 years ago, expecting it to be a city of note. Being thought and planned for a big city makes the reason for the wide streets and parks. Just picture 100 years ago, in its nature's beauty, a forest and trees down to the water's edge, and the island in the beyond, and the St. Clair River flowing on and on. God's handiwork everywhere. And look at the Presbyterian Church, built about 87 years ago, and the trees around, planted about 84 years ago by my uncle and mother. And this church looks as it would stand for many more years. Look at the Catholic Church and God's acre around it, and the workmanship on the church. Something unusual and grand, both inside and out. All of our village churches are so bright and cheerful as I go into the city. I feel as I like our home churches. They're also light and bright inside. Everything restful to the eyes. We have 2 houses on the west side of 40 Highway, and they have seen over 50 summers, and the scroll work on the front of these houses under the eaves looks grand somehow, a long way better taste than many of our modern houses. A number of our houses have seen over 70 summers, and they are looking very good, far better than some humans who have passed the 70 mark. I was lucky that the main road was changed from Murray Street to Lyndoch Street. This 40 highway is beautiful because of its trees. Now the pine trees on the northeast corner of Fane and Lyndoch were planted about 50 years ago. This was preceded a few years before by the following words. Grandmothers of Moore Township, in the bygone days, I can picture them with the wide skirts that must have measured 5 yards around the bottom. The body part was plain and long sleeves, the waist parts nearly always lined. Some of the waists were hooked up at the back. 1 or 2 petticoats were also worn with a shimmy. All underclothing were handmade, nearly all the dresses and also coats. Another garment that was worn was a shawl with the peak at back and the 2 down the front. Even the handkerchiefs were homemade. No rubbers or overshoes, and most of them had home-knitted stockings. And these grandmothers spun the yarn for them, and also for other garments. 1 or 2 old ladies had nets on their hair. These nets looked to be hand crocheted, and with their bonnets with bows tied under the chin made a noble-looking grandmother. They also wore nightcaps. That is something of the past. The ornament was the wedding ring and a good-sized brooch. A few had small earrings, put through pierced holes in the ears. I have a bedspread that an old grandmother spun the flax for. I think that these grandmothers of the past had a good time, making and inventing ways of making a living. Now they made skimmed milk cheese, and they made quite a number for winter use. Then there was the tallow candles and laundry soap, and head cheese that was made in good large quantities, peeling apples and also drying them, and some also peeled and dried pumpkins. And these grandmothers peeled apples and also rocked the cradle with their foot, trying to keep quiet the grandchild, and she might have been heard to sing a lullaby at the same time. I believe the grandmothers, with their different ways of making a living, made them more of a homemaking race. These grandmothers were always ready to help the needy, and were the first to make the acquaintance of every babe that arrived in the neighborhood. These grandmothers were even on hand to prepare the young and old who had passed on for burial. It was these grandmothers' job instead of the undertaker. And when the burial services were given, they were laid away in God's acre, and the epitaph on their slab could have been written, "She has done what she could to bring brightness to this world of ours."